I had scoliosis and I had a surgery for it, but there was a Barnes& and Noble nearby, and before, like, going in for the surgery, me and mom walked past it, and I said, "Could you pick up, like, manga for me and bring it to me so I can read it while I'm there recovering in the hospital?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Yes." I have just positive emotions around
Mhm.
all of it, that it was kind of like an escape from the reality, and I think it is for a lot of people.
Today, I got to sit down with a young genius in the manga industry. Her name is Lorelai. Lorelai took me through the incredible ins and outs of a modern day manga store. And yes, not a bookstore, a manga store. Animotion is the only manga store in Pennsylvania and one of the only on the entire East Coast. Through this conversation, you'll be able to get a feel for the pain, the fun, the hardship, the self-fulfillment. So be prepared and enjoy.
So around like 2020, like start of 2021, when I think that's when COVID was happening, we were stuck inside like a lot. So that's when I started getting into anime, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Mhm.
But Sam, who's the owner of the store,
Mhm.
saw like my interest in it because I was coming home with like manga books and stuff like that.
Mm.
And he owns another bookstore called Wellington. It's just a regular bookstore, doesn't sell like comics or anything that's related to this.
Mhm.
But it became like a very high grossing market because people, were interested in getting manga after being like stuck inside.
Yeah.
So that's kind of sparked our idea. He's like, well, this is something you really enjoy. Like, let's come together and create this store. So that was our idea for it.
Yeah. So you started off with the manga store and you obviously saw it growing more and more. How did you come across this location?
So we used to be over in Eagleview, which is where the other bookstore is,
Mhm.
and we were not getting a lot of
Really?
business there because it's kind of like hidden away.
Yeah.
The windows were kind of dark too, so you couldn't even see us in there. Sam is, I think he's friends with like the guy over at Ron's,
Mhm.
which is a restaurant. It's really good. I go there
Nice.
sometimes. Yeah, the space was open
Mhm.
after like an antique store
Hmm.
left. Sometimes old people come in, they're like, "What is this?"
Oh, they're shocked.
Yeah. I'm like, "Maureen's is not here anymore, sorry."
Yeah.
But this space was open and he had a lot of creative ideas for it, like the ceiling, and
Yeah.
there used to be like this weird wall thing here we knocked out, but this space just had so much more like foot traffic because of like Cookies vape store, and
Yeah.
the post office and the bank. So we see a lot more like people coming in now, just not
Yeah.
not even like looking
Yeah,
for
it's
it.
funny. When we were coming here, that was like the first thing we noticed. We're like, this parking lot is full.
Yes. So I saw manga, like people collecting it on TikTok a lot and like
Oh.
shelving it, and now shelving it is my job, which is like the most satisfying thing ever. Um, but I had scoliosis and I had a surgery for it in like the hospital in Philadelphia, but there was a Barnes& and Noble nearby, and before like going in for the surgery, me and mom walked past it, and I said, "Could you pick up like manga for me and bring it to me so I can read it while I'm there recovering in the hospital?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Yes." And I think the first one that I ever like bought was Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which is kind of like an obscure one,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
think historically kind of controversial
Yeah,
about
I
like
heard about that one a
in
lot.
the school library. But that was my first introduction to it, and I really loved it. And I like the collector's aspect of it. So that just set me on the train from there. Like I have my whole collection at home. I love the expressiveness of it, and
Yeah.
it's really and like and captivating the way you can like the pictures and everything.
What's your collection look like at home?
I can show you a picture if you want.
Yes.
But it's
Yes.
like my own shelf. It's probably like this tall, like three.
Oh,
It's pretty
oh, that's
sweet.
sweet. No, that's cool. So, and that's so cool too because like that obviously shaped such a positive experience because obviously you said you were in the hospital at that time, and that I'm sure passes time so
Yes.
quickly. What did that kind of mean to you? Because I'm sure was that when you started reading like your first manga? Or
Yeah, that was the first one I ever like held physically that
wow.
I had bought.
So like, what did that experience mean to you? Obviously, while you were recovering and stuff like that.
I have just positive emotions around
Mhm.
all of it. That it was kind of like an escape from the reality, and I think it is for a lot of people in a positive way. I know like escaping from reality
Yeah.
can be kind of like, but subjective. But
Mhm.
I think it really brings like a light into people's life and is inspiring. And I felt that way reading it. It made me feel better. And I
Yeah.
was in like the hospital bed in pain. I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I can definitely relate with that with manga, but also, of course, with anime as well. Like, it's always something that even if you're having a bad day, you can turn it on. It can shape the whole day in a different
Yes.
way.
Yes.
So no, I definitely get that.
So before opening the store, we had to find a location, and luckily we knew about it because we already had another business.
Mhm.
But we struggled with sourcing the books because it's like, where exactly did these come from? No one really thinks about it.
Mm.
But the main companies are like Media and Kodansha. We learned that over time, so we had to figure out where do we get these books, like who's publishing.
Mhm.
And then once we started ordering more, we were able to figure it out, and it's a lot easier now. But at the beginning, that was hard because it's not like Penguin like publishing. Like with
Yeah.
regular books, we're like, where do we get these? So it was an interesting process trying to find like where they come from.
Yeah. Can you do a deep dive on that? Because that's actually one aspect I've never thought about. But like as I've been trying to get more into finding people for different series that has to do with anime, I definitely noticed a struggle with it because like, for example, if I want to interview someone that is a manga writer, they probably don't speak English. So
Yes.
it's like it was very difficult to find that. So I'm sure you struggled with that too. So like can you do a deep dive on like what that process was like for you?
So I don't do most of the ordering for the manga, so I'm
Hmm.
not the best to like answer that specific question, but different genres kind of fall under different like brands. Like Viz does a lot of like the mainstream like shonen.
Hmm.
Um and then like Tokyo Pop does a lot of like shoujo, I don't know, like
Hmm.
Vampire Night, stuff like that. Like they kind of like they've changed over time too,
Yeah.
what their demographic is. The publishers
Yeah.
like depend on the genre of like what you want. And waiting for translation too, people will come in and be like, "Do you have this yet?" And it's not translated out in English. So we have like a wait time for that too.
How long does that usually take?
And usually, I don't think it takes too long for the
Hmm.
translation, because sometimes like Viz is faster. I think because yes, they're a
Yeah.
big company and they publish stuff weekly. I don't like Chainsaw Man. Like the when the new chapters come out, those are translated in English pretty quickly.
Oh,
Because they do it chapter by chapter. They already have that
mhm.
set up, and so when they go to print it, it doesn't take as long.
That makes sense because I know, especially with animes too, like that time can sometimes differ by a ton. You'll have, like, I know the top tier shows, like, for example, My Hero, or actually, no, not Demon Slayer, but I know My Hero, Chainsaw Man is another one. They're usually like 2 weeks, sometimes even week by week, like
Yeah.
the subs will come out and then the dubs will come out. But there's other shows like the example that I just thought of was Demon Slayer.
Mhm.
I don't think they even started their dub until maybe like a month or two after the
Yeah.
whole season was over. So I can see that really fluctuating in manga too.
Well, I get an employee discount. No, but the people and the communities around it really like it just shape that experience. Everyone that comes in is so positive and they just love sharing it. And that's really great for us. But I just love seeing that community. And even like between the employees, we're always sharing like our new favorite stuff with each other. Sometimes we will watch it together. We've done like little watch parties where we show each other like an episode of our favorite anime. So just like having like this community be a part of my job and my everyday life, something that I love so much, is just so awesome. So getting the word out there, I think, was our most difficult challenge, especially at the last store. And social media is a lot harder than I think we all expected it to be. Um, I'm sure you understand that,
100%.
like the
100%.
views and likes and things like that. But I think we do have a good following, and finding good people to work with us that like know the material and like it and are just nice people. I think we have a great group of people, but it's always like interview processes are just like that. Yeah, we have a good team here, and whenever someone leaves, it's like
Yeah.
challenging to find a replacement.
Mhm.
But yeah, back to the getting the word out. The word of mouth here is a lot better than it was at our last location. So we just struggle with people knowing where we were originally
Mhm.
and like that we existed even.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I definitely can relate because before I did YouTube, I owned a vegan business, and that business was very hard to hire for because so we did.
It's so specific.
Yes, and that was, like, kind of the hard part, and very similar to, like, what you struggled with, where it's like, of course, you can hire anyone, and a lot of people can do different jobs, but, like, it's a lot more meaningful for, like, the environment and also, like, the job itself if they're, like, into what it
Yeah,
actually is,
for sure.
whereas, like, finding people that super love manga is probably, I'm sure, kinda similar to finding people that are vegan or
Yeah.
veganism, so, I could see that definitely being a struggle. So what did you do to actually get the word out there and stuff aside from like Instagram? What like because I'm sure you saw word of mouth start to pick up.
We use TikTok now too,
Mm,
so that's good.
mm,
That's social media is growing. It's a really big aspect of that, getting the word out. But then also changing locations helped so much. I know I talked about that already, but
mhm,
people love like sharing that they found it with like their friends and stuff, and people will be like, "Oh, so and so told me," and so that's just really great.
Yeah, I think I perused through a lot to find because like it was very hard to find a manga store specifically, and that's like
Hmm.
what I wanted to find. And it was like very lucky because I'm almost 100% sure you were like the only one.
Yeah,
Because it kept sending me to like New York City, and I'm like, I don't
it's
really
too
want
far
to go there.
away.
Yeah, I was like, that's too far away. So, no, I can definitely see that, being a tough thing. And social media is very hard to grow on, and it's also not even just hard to grow on, but it's like hard to figure everything out, and it takes
Yes.
time. Yeah, so I can
The
definitely see that.
algorithms and everything, it's complicated.
Exactly. Yeah. What kind of sparked some of the ideas that you do on social media? Because I saw you guys were doing like the book review or the manga reviews and stuff like that. Like, what kind of got you those ideas?
The fact that there we have like the sister store, the other bookstore,
Hmm.
the way that like they do filming for that was through the guy that we use now for I
Oh.
think for these videos. So we already had like a connection with
Hmm.
like an idea of what we wanted to do. One of my coworkers, Michaela, she is kind of popular on TikTok with
Oh.
manga related stuff.
Oh,
So she
cool.
had that like the edge up that
Yeah.
she was able to share with us. That was helpful. So we haven't been open super long. It's almost been a year at this location and like a anniversary since we moved to it on October last year. We're still, like you said, one of the only manga stores in the area. I think the closest one would be New Jersey or New York's Kinokuniya, which is if you
Definitely.
haven't been there, go there. It's so cool.
Yeah.
We carry like largest scale of manga being sold around us compared to Barnes and Noble. Like if you don't want to go to like Books a Million or Barnes and Noble, this is where to go. And we try and carry like more obscure things.
Hmm.
I think it's been like the market itself has been consistent since we started, just like on the up and up that more people want to get into manga. And I think that's beneficial to us,
That
but
makes sense.
also a challenge when getting stuff in because then the other like bigger brand stores like Barnes and Noble want the same stuff we do. So like we're missing like volume ones and things like that. We don't have that like higher up connection. I think as the demand goes up for it, it can
Yeah.
be like competition. But I think because we're one of the only types of stores in the area, people still want to come here. And so that kind of cancels out. So we've only been at this location about a year now, so it's not like we have any like huge plans. We got stuff done like the fish tank, TV, yada yada. So all this stuff about the aesthetic of the store we really have set now. And just more about like the events. Like we're hoping to host like a Pokemon League here at some point, and then just having more people come for our watch parties and things like that. Just using the space that we have now to its max like
Mhm.
potential.
But what would you say is like your favorite out of all the community events that you guys do?
Um, I think used to be art night because that
Yeah.
was like introduced me to a creative outlet like that, but also the game nights
Yeah, the game
because
night.
I just get to sit here and play Mario Kart with people.
Yeah,
It's pretty
exactly. And I was partially. It's so cool you said that because I was like partially one of the biggest reasons why I started this YouTube channel was because like I feel like there's not many things in the world that get as much like excitement, passion, like just pure joy than when you're talking about anime or manga.
Yeah.
No matter if you meet like a random person, you can have a conversation and it feels like you guys have known each other.
Yes,
And
for sure.
I think that is like just such a cool aspect, and I'm sure do you experience that a lot here?
Oh yeah, for sure. And some people come in, it's like they talk more than they look around the store. Like they just want to like share what they love with someone else. And I enjoy talking to people too.
Hmm.
It's fun. And sometimes I learn about like new series and things, and then I get to suggest what we should order. You learn a lot from it. So globally, I love seeing like conventions and stuff like that. Like I haven't had the chance to go to any, but they're just so cool that people can all come together and share that on that scale. Also, I think with like AI and things like that, art might change, but the fact that like manga is really rooted in like that traditional art style, I think it will still stay that way, but might use AI and things like that to enhance it or make things easier for people. And then locally we just see a lot of people who are recommending this place to others, like they want to share it with their friends and family and partners, or sometimes like their kids, like people have come in and it's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get my kid into manga, etc., which is really cool. So locally I think people are really enjoying this place and using it to share
Yeah.
with others something that they really like. memory. When you think about them, they add like a nostalgic value because there's something you can see with your eyes and connect to what's being said. It just helps to inspire people by putting that image in their head. I find a lot of people like want to make their own like series and stuff after like reading it or just like drawing their own things based on manga or their favorite characters. So I think it inspires people to try art in their own way.
Yeah.
Oh, the longer, like the nature of that most series are just like longer in general gives people the opportunity to build a community around it because there's so much like content for them to be taking in. So I think it gives people a place and, you know, a positive escape from reality. And, you know, sometimes that's not as positive.
Yeah. No, well, I think it's
But
definitely positive. And
yeah.
it's still considered reading, of course, too, I
Yes,
agree.
I think some people undermine that too. Like, I really like Chainsaw Man's writing, even though it can be kind of silly at times. I think it's really impactful and creative. And also, I'm not sure if you've read Look Back by the same author, but that one made me cry. Like,
Really?
there's some really deep stuff and that people get into, and also there's a lot more words than you would expect. Like Hunter x Hunter, when they're explaining all like
I've been
power
hearing about
things,
that.
so long, it's like paragraphs. I'm like, what? How are you fitting that giant speech bubble here? But yeah, I think people sometimes take for granted the amount of literature that's actually in manga itself.
Yeah, and I think you have to prepare yourself.
Yes.
Next chapter of Hunter x Hunter is even more, apparently.
Oh my gosh.
So that'll be fun. But no, I plan on seeing Look Back. It's going to be in theaters, I think.
Oh my
Next
gosh, I
year.
didn't know that. It's so
Yeah,
exciting. It's
yeah.
so good.
It looks really good.
Prepared to cry a little bit.
Have you read or seen Silent Voice?
I've seen Silent Voice. I did cry at that too.
I was gonna say that's probably that and To Your Eternity, probably the only series that they got me choked
Those
up.
are great examples of like really emotional stories. If you haven't seen them, I would definitely watch them.
Yeah,
They're a little heavy, but I think people also think that manga is kind of like lighthearted or action or like meant for kids. That aspect of it, like with Silent Voice, they cover very like mature themes about like, can I say that?
yeah.
About suicide and
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And since you said this too, I'm actually kind of curious. Did you start drawing after you started manga, or was it before?
Yeah, I think I did. I don't really remember the timeline, but I draw characters from like Soul Art. Oh my god, sorry, from Soul Eater.
Yeah.
Well, there's like their art book is called Soul Art.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Soul Eater and also Gorillas. So when those two worlds collided for me, I was like, oh my god, this makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What kind of sparked that interest? Because obviously there's so many mangas that will never pick up a pencil. So like, what do you think sparked that interest in you?
The art nights here, honestly, because I would sit down and start doing it with the people,
Oh,
and some people are just like really talented. I was like, I want to try too. A fun little exercise is like random Pokemon generator and trying to draw them.
oh,
But then just taking the book, like one of the books off the shelf and like referencing it, is fun too. So my mom said to have a lot of disposable income, because or just for any bookstore in general, because seeing that like revenue and things is not going to be very quick, and just because of the type of thing that you're selling, um, it's always challenging to run like a small business. So I think just having that in mind, and if you're really passionate about it, because I know, you know, people are really passionate about this topic specifically, if it's something you want to do, I would say go for it because, like you said, like we're one of the only stores in the area. So I think you'd be really giving people an opportunity to like be more involved in something that they love, and for you to. So if that's something you really want to do, go ahead and do it. Just have the plan, the
yeah,
plan.
no, that makes sense. I just read a book recently. It was a Korean book. It was called Welcome to Hyunam Dong Bookshop.
Mhm,
And it was a whole story about a woman who like worked in the tech industry, that her job, and opened a bookstore.
mhm.
And it went through like all the nuances of that and stuff like that. And it was similar. She did like a lot of events. They had coffee shop in there as
Oh,
well.
that's
Yeah,
super
which is kind
cool.
of smart, yeah. And then how, you know, like breaking even for a long time, and
Mhm.
then, you know, the events made a huge difference in the amount of people that were coming in and staying in consistently. So I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool. I don't think if there's any other fun ones. Stories.
That was all great. Thank you so much. These were really like insightful questions. I loved sharing.
Yeah, like before I was doing a lot of like more Ghibli content.
Mhm.
Um and I don't know, it was a lot more difficult for me to get into because I was so late to that. Like Ghibli has been around and popular for so many years.
Yeah.
I saw my first Ghibli movie this year.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so it was like really hard for me to get into that. And I was like, what can I do that I really enjoy and that people would like actually be interested in watching? I was like, you know what? I like going up to people and talking to them. So that is really the biggest reason. It was just so fun. Like so many people give like crazy answers, or like they just had like crazy interactions. And it was just like
never looking back after that.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think there's so much like the community around it is so diverse and it
Mhm.
hits so many people with different demographics that
Mhm.
you can, yeah, you gain so much from doing that.
Yeah. Would you do this job for the rest of your life?
I think if I could, I would.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun,
Hell yeah.
except for maybe mopping.
I guess cleaning that. No one likes
Yes.
no one likes it.